Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Moscow Mitch Monday. We are the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee, and we are incredibly excited to talk with you tonight over the interwebs. We're bringing the digital demonstration to you to ditch Moscow Mitch. Really exciting show for you tonight. We have got our usual weekly summary, Mitch in the news, lots of weighty news for Mitch this week. We got our call to action. We've got Doug following Mitch's money, specifically around the HEROES Act, and we're joined by Bill Londrigan from the Kentucky AFL-CIO, so big labor group here in Kentucky. And it's a great show. It's all very thematic. We've got kind of one focus, which is the big, huge coronavirus relief effort that's happening right now in Washington, D.C. So we're going to hear a lot of different elements of that as that fight as it proceeds. Hot off the presses news. And perhaps the most exciting thing happening this week, though, no, that's not true. I'm not gonna lean into that. But an exciting thing that's happening this week is Indivisible is right now matching all donations to all their affiliated groups. And guess what? We're an affiliated group. So you can make a donation through our Act Blue account right now, and Indivisible will match it. So that's pretty cool. And they're going to match it up to $350, which is pretty cool. So if we do, what we want to do, $700 is, that's great. We would love to have a $700 week here at the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee, because remember, none of the money goes to salaries. No one's getting paid. It's all volunteer. It goes to building a bigger megaphone and sharing the facts about why we need to ditch Mitch on November 3rd with the world. So at any rate, I wanted to see if we could actually hit that by the end of the live stream tonight. So go on, make a donation, do what you can to help us out. We'd really appreciate it. But all right, we're going to kick off the show. So we're going to start with our hosts, letting folks know who you are, where you are, what does your Moscow Mitch Monday sign say today. And I'm Aaron. I'm coming at you from Childsburg in Lexington. And my sign today says, "Hey, Mitch, be a heroes." So that's my sign. Who's next? How about Nate? What's your sign say?
Hey folks, this is Nate Orshan coming at you from South Frankfort in Franklin County, and my sign would be say, "Hey Mitch, stay in DC and get us some relief."
Lovely. And Annabel Nagel, our guest host today. Who are you and where are you coming from? What's your sign say?
Hi, I'm Annabel Nagel. I'm from Versailles, and my sign would probably say justice for Breonna Taylor, because it's been like almost 140 days and that hasn't happened yet.
Fantastic. And Annabelle's coming to us from the Starbucks parking lot, where she has the reliable Wi-Fi. We hope. We'll see. We'll see if she's here at the end of the show. Starbucks will be knocking on the door. Ma'am, you need to order a latte, ma'am. Or whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a latte. All right, so Mitch in the news, that's what we've got coming your way right now, and I think Nate has the first story to share with us.
I do. So this one is coming to us from the Kentucky Democratic Party, as published in where? The Kentucky State AFL-CIO website. It's a really good website that everyone should check out. And this one just came out on Saturday. So here's the deal. There's apparently over 145,000 Kentuckians currently unemployed, right? So they're getting unemployment relief, and each week they're getting a $600 bump from federal coronavirus relief. The bad news, as you probably know, if you read the news at all, is that it's going away at the end of this week as this version of coronavirus relief sort of comes to an end. And they're, Mitch McConnell is staying in DC, right, to take care of this and get another relief package quickly so nobody gets kicked out of their apartment. No. In fact, as the article puts it, quote, "Mitch McConnell decided to take a nice relaxing weekend at home rather than stay in DC and extend federal help," unquote. So his message to all the struggling Kentuckians is that he hopes to make it in maybe a few weeks. Can you imagine? If you really depend on that $600 to feed your kids, to keep your house, over your head, it's just ridiculous. But this is in keeping with Republican orthodoxy, right? Because the typical Republican senator basically has this dogma that if you give people a little extra money for something like unemployment relief, they're going to just stay at home instead of try to get a job, right? And for half a second, that sounds maybe credible until you think, one, what job? There are no jobs. Jobs are going away. So, that assumes that there's jobs for people to take. And two, there was an interesting fact that James Downey wrote about in the Washington Post. I didn't share the link, but we'll have that soon. But basically, he was saying, quote, if unemployment benefits were depressing job numbers, we'd see wages going up. But that's not what's happening. In fact, those on unemployment benefits are more likely, according to economics studies, to look for work than those whose benefits have expired. So it's sort of the opposite. The research is showing it's the opposite of what Republicans like Mitch McConnell are saying. So there's no reason not to keep this benefit going, except he doesn't care, and that's just a damn shame. So
Yeah.
That's the end of my bad news story.
Well, it is. It's, I think, staggering to think about the fact that this Senate, who's had 2 months to deal with the HEROES Act, right, which the House passed 2 months ago, which is the more kind of comprehensive approach, right? Gives the money for, for more vote by mail in November, because obviously we're going to need to do that. It gives more money for the Postal Service, which is having a really hard time right now. It funds Medicaid, Medicare, it gives the money to the states. Does all the things that you would want a coronavirus relief package to do, right? And extends the unemployment benefit. And it just sat there for 2 months while Mitch just ran out the clock and wouldn't have the tough conversations with his caucus. And so now there's a story that, that came across my desk from NBC News, sourced by a bunch of Republicans, talking about how hard it is to get this group together. They've got their $1 trillion package. They don't want to go over $1 trillion just, I don't know, just because they've got all their kind of pet projects in there. They have things like they want this payroll tax holiday. They think that's really important. Of course, if you're actually working, then you don't need as much relief, right? Because the economy's been kind of ground to a halt because it's not safe to work in a lot of situations. So why in the world would a payroll tax holiday have anything to do with anything? Of course, that's because it's a backdoor effort by the Republicans to weaken Social Security, to make the argument they need to cut Social Security benefits. It's their exact agenda they've always had, but they're taking advantage of the opportunity right now, right? So, we're hearing more kind of breaking news, and I think we'll get into this with Bill later on, but that the HEROES Act, it's not going anywhere. The Senate is trying to figure out their own package. They, at this point, have proposed cutting that weekly emergency unemployment benefit from $600, which just about makes people whole, to $200 a week, until states can bring on a much more complicated program, which would be about 70% of what you would have normally made. So they hate the idea. Republicans just, it's anathema to them to actually help people out, right? Although it's the only thing that's keeping the economy going right now, right? If we cut that benefit, it's, evictions are going to happen. People are not going to be able to pay their mortgages. They're going to be in those tough situations where, medicine or food, and they're going to spend more money to take care of their kids as well. So it's just a perfect storm of horribleness, and the Republicans want to make it worse, right? Because of some theoretical concern that some people are taking advantage of the situation, which of course, lots of people are taking advantage of the situation. Mostly it's massive corporations through the PPP, but they want to set in place the 70% number so that people only get paid up to 70% of what they had collected before they lost their jobs. Which, if you're paying at all attention to what's happening here in Kentucky, our unemployment system is fundamentally broken. It does not, here's some new math for you to do and a new system to roll out. Every other state's most states are in a very similar situation in that their unemployment system is not up to any new challenges. It's not up to the volume that it's dealing with, and it's certainly not up to this kind of new math that they want to make it introduce. So it's a bad idea. It's a cumbersome process, but the Republicans seem very wedded to it. We shall see what the Democrats are able to negotiate, but one thing that gives me hope are the polls. And, caveat, of course, you always have to have a caveat for polling, right? So polls are just a snapshot in a moment. But all the things that the public want from coronavirus relief it's the absolute opposite of what Mitch McConnell and his crew are trying to do. So this is a poll from the public policy polling here in Kentucky. It was July 17th to 18th. It was over 1,500 voters, Kentucky voters. These are folks who went for Donald Trump, 57% to 33%. So these are Trump voters. But these folks absolutely disagree by that same margin with McConnell's push and Trump's push to have kids back in school, even as coronavirus infections are rising. Other numbers that were, I think, impressive takeaway here. So 73% support increasing funding for testing and treatment for coronavirus. 68% support increasing the federal funding to Medicaid. 66% support an additional round of $1,200 stimulus payments to most Americans. 65% support allocating $1 trillion to state and local governments so that they don't have to go bankrupt. 57% support a 15% increase in food assistance to families and through SNAP. And then 52% support creating a special enrollment period for Americans to sign up under the Affordable Care Act, the ACA. So, all these things that, this is the HEROES Act, right? So they basically broke up the elements of the HEROES Act and pulled on it, and it's all very popular. But Mitch isn't really listening to that, unfortunately. He seems to be trying to corral his delegation there, the senators and the Republican senators, which is tough because you've got the hardline senators who don't want to spend any money ever, period. Then you've got the senators that are up for re-election, and they're I think probably way more open to the idea of spending more money. I think Annabel's going to get into that in just a second, and he's trying to kind of corral them together. The reality of it is he's probably going to have to get a bunch of Democratic votes because there's some of these Republicans that are just not going to budge at all. So he has to get something that he's got a tough job. I do not feel sorry for him. If he wanted to get this done, he could have started 2 months ago when the House handed him the HEROES Act, but he just dismissed it as a liberal wish list. So it's a huge challenge, and I don't want him to fail because it's people's lives that are at stake here. But man, he's done a horrible job setting this up for success. The idea that they're going to just jerk people's unemployment support to make them get kicked out of their homes in the middle of the pandemic is just offensive. So but that was my couple of my stories there, and I think we've got one from Annabel looking at some of those polling issues. What you got?
Okay, so this is from a website called the Cook Report. So basically, with the amount of deaths related to the coronavirus rising, the chances of victory for Republicans is getting lower and lower. And who else to blame for this than President Trump? His actions aren't only affecting the country, but are also affecting all of the Republican candidates across the country, making their odds of winning go way down. A strong example of this is in Colorado with Senator Gardner. One of the Republicans in Colorado said that it has been made really clear that Trump's actions keep affecting Gardner's odds of winning and making his odds go down quite a bit. Something that should be scaring the Republicans is that in 2016, every Senate race outcome tracked exactly what the presidential winner was in that state. So if that plays any role in this election, the chances of victory for them are still going way down. And this being said, the Democratic candidates' chances are going way up. They're doing really good in funding right now. And we definitely have a bunch of momentum. The racial justice rallies have definitely played a big role in that and have led for a large and sudden cultural shift in America. That some of that involves Mitch's prized Confederate monuments across the country. He loves those, but they're honestly only hurting the Republican Party right now. And so we can just only hope that this stays true through November and Mitch's odds just keep going down with Trump.
So basically, even if, heaven forbid, Amy does not beat Mitch, Mitch seems to be on a path to have a significant demotion, going from the majority leader to the minority leader. So there's some, that's some solace there. But it's interesting. You mentioned that the protests for racial justice right now seem to be, making the case for the Democrats. People don't trust the Republicans to deal with racial justice at all. Annabel, I know you've been really active in those protests. Can you tell me a little bit about what your feeling is from being on the streets? Like, what are you hearing? What's the crowd look like, sound like? What do you think is important to them?
At first, it kind of just seemed like a very liberal crowd and like only liberals, but now like as we've gotten months into it, you can definitely tell that it's more of like a variety of people, and we all kind of want the same thing, and that's to get the racist, white supremacist leaders out of our country.
And would you say that crowd sees Mitch as, a force for good or as a problem to be gotten rid of?
Definitely a problem.
Now, are all those protesters registered to vote? And do you take voter registration, forms with you?
I would hope they're all registered to vote. That would definitely be helpful. I don't register anyone there, but I've seen people doing it.
All right. Maybe an assignment for future protests. All right, so that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Annabel. And that is Mitch in the News. So great wrap up. Thanks, everybody. Now we've got our call to action. So we've heard about the HEROES Act. We've heard about Mitch's political challenges. Now let's do something about it, shall we, people?
We shall.
So if we are going to hold Mitch McConnell accountable, we need to demand better of him, right? Us talking to each other on a live stream doesn't do it. We've got to take our voices and direct them somewhere. And so we have got a phone number that you can use right now to make a phone call. It's an 800 number. It'll patch you through to your senator. It's 866-832-1560. So make the call. I will say this. Mitch does not want to hear from you. I'm sorry. Don't take it personal. He doesn't want to hear from me either. I call his office constantly. He tells me in the voicemail how important my call is to him, but then there's no way to leave a message, and they rarely ever pick up. So my flag on this is if you are in that situation where they will not let you leave a message, they aren't letting you talk to somebody, take it to Facebook, go to one of his most recent posts and make a comment. Hey, I've called your office. No one ever picks up. I can't ever talk to a human, but as a constituent, I want you to know your leadership on the HEROES Act has been insert your own, message right then and there. But I think making sure that stuff's getting shared is really important. He shouldn't be able to hide from us this easily. Let's put it in his face. Let's hold him accountable. Let's share that message. What's up, Nate?
Pro tip. So you see from my phone, you may be able to see, I have a lot of Mitch McConnell numbers, all these offices. I have had the best luck calling his Bowling Green office. For whatever reason, it seems to take a message. And then sometimes I'll get an email back from him with BS. But here's the number of Mitch McConnell's Bowling Green office. You're a Kentuckian. He's supposed to take your message. It's 270-781-1673. That number again, 270-781-1673 for Mitch McConnell's Bowling Green office. Back to you, Evan.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So that's our call to action. Make the phone call. Hold them accountable. Get your voice heard. And then coming up now, we've got Doug Price, our treasurer with the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. Also, our researcher, unparalleled, is digging in on the HEROES Act. So let's take it away, Doug.
I would certainly be in favor of allowing states to use the bankruptcy route.
Let's have a discussion about the HEROES Act and Mitch's failure to act on the bill passed by the House. But first, a shout out to our guest tonight, the AFL-CIO. Here's what they think about Mitch. In 2019, their rating of Mitch was 21%, and he has a lifetime score of 12%. In contrast, Congressman John Yarmouth has a 2019 rating of 100% and a lifetime rating of 98%. What is the acronym behind HEROES? The Health, and Economic Recovery Omnibus Emergency Solutions Act. The Kentucky Center for Economic Policy has posted a compilation on the HEROES Act. The bill will provide the kind of substantial economic relief Kentucky and other states need in the face of the COVID-19 recession. The Senate must now join the House and agree to a relief package that adequately supports families, governments, and businesses through this crisis and sets the stage for a robust economic recovery when the pandemic is eventually behind us. Here are what major elements of the HEROES Act would mean for Kentucky. The Commonwealth will receive a total of $7.4 billion over 2 years. City, counties, and other governmental units would receive over $4.4 billion. As an example, my county, Harrison, would receive $10.6 million. The county seat, Cynthiana, would receive $3.1 million, and the second largest city, Barry, in the county, will receive $128,000. During Governor Beshear's COVID-19 press conference on July 22nd, he said revenues in the last 3 months have declined 8% and that the state faces a $1.1 billion shortfall for the current fiscal year without federal assistance.
The last estimate is that we have is almost a $1.1 billion shortfall in the year to come. Without federal assistance in either a new CARES Act, providing direct budgetary assistance just like they did during the Great Recession, or Congress changing one of the last CARES Act and giving us more flexibility to use past funds given to us directly in our budget, we will be looking at, I believe, the largest budget cuts in our history. Now, I hope that what happened in this last fiscal year has a chance of happening going forward, but we know what we face moving forward without federal assistance is really rough.
We will be looking at the largest budget cuts in our history. The AFL-CIO stresses that the House HEROES Act will provide long overdue relief for working people. If Mitch McConnell doesn't act, budget cuts will destroy the public services we need to recover from the coronavirus. The HEROES Act promises a second stimulus check of up to $6,000 for a family of 5, debt relief, student loan forgiveness, hazard pay, 6 more months of COVID-19 unemployment, housing and food assistance, and nearly $1 trillion in aid for state and local governments so they can pay vital workers like first responders, health workers, and teachers who are at risk of losing their jobs due to budget shortfalls. The HEROES Act also makes a change in the federal government's new Paycheck Protection Program for small businesses. The new proposal eliminates the requirement for businesses to use 75% of the money for payroll expenses, so small businesses could use the money as they please. Last week, Mitch finally decided to draft a Senate bill that will hopefully address some of these issues. Now both sides can negotiate the final bill, which will be markedly different than what the House sent to Mitch over 2 months ago. As of July 23rd, the Senate version is a $1 trillion bill as opposed to the House $3 trillion bill. I expect this means that there are no funds for state budgets. The most powerful man in the Senate does not care for his home state. Does he want the states to go bankrupt? His people suffer? So why is Mitch holding the HEROES Act hostage? Should it be about money for the people or money for Mitch and businesses? As always with Mitch, it's about the money. The United States Chamber of Commerce is pushing for liability protection for businesses. In the 2020 election cycle, the Chamber donated $21,400 to Mitch. During the 2020 cycle, the Chamber has given donations of over $350,000 to politicians and spent an amazing $77 million in lobbying. From 1998 to 2020, the Chamber has spent $1.6 billion on lobbying. According to Open Secrets, the Center for Responsive Politics, this is the most money ever spent by one group, ever. Don't you expect this buys a lot of support? The Chamber's number one concern is making sure there is liability protection for businesses. The Chamber wants to make sure businesses can do what is best for the business, not the employee. I understand this is a broad stroke and that not all businesses will take advantage of their employees. The draft proposal, authored by McConnell and Senator John Cornyn of Texas, proposes relieving businesses, schools, churches, and other institutions of legal responsibility for workers, customers, and others who contract COVID-19, except in cases of gross negligence and intentional misconduct, a difficult standard to prove in court. Should we get Aaron Brockovich on speed dial? As the Associated Press reported, the Republican plan offers a broad shield by requiring heightened pleading standards, stiffening burden of proof standards, and capping damages on awards. Employers would also be shielded from investigations by federal agencies. Additionally, McConnell and Cornyn's plan would empower companies to move coronavirus-related personal injury and medical liability cases to more business-friendly federal courts. Defendants are liable to draft states only if they fail to make reasonable efforts to follow applicable public health guidelines. Mitch has pushed the appointment of 190 circuit district court judges. Could you call this stacking the deck? The bottom line is pay to play. The chamber has spent more money on lobbying than any other organization. Money talks or Mitch walks. I believe this must end. We need to ditch Mitch on November 3rd, 2020. Back to you, Aaron and Nate.
This partisan impeachment will end today.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Another awesome clip that I can't help but think would not be as good as it is today if we did not have the kind assistance of Mr. Ken Cravens and Couchfire Media helping put all this together. But stuff like upping up our production values takes a little money. It would be nice to be able to afford to continue to keep coming at you this way. And so to that end, we could really, really use your support. We are part of Indivisible now, so now we can take your donations. We're going to put up the URL in a second. secure.actblue.com/donate/MMRC2020. And here's the thing, this week, Indivisible is doing something special. They are matching contributions up to $350 total. What we're hoping is that you're going to see this and say, you know what, this is the right time for me to make my contribution. You're going to go to that URL and you're going to donate. And all of our donations are they total up to $350. Indivisible is going to match that. Oh, I see we're about to be putting that on live. I think we also have some news from that Bill's going to share later, but I don't want to cut into that. So we'll talk about that later. But suffice it to say, we really could use your support, and we hope that we can keep coming at you with this high level of production that you're coming to know and rely on, and maybe we can be seen all across Kentucky more frequently. So, thanks for doing your part.
All right, thanks, Nate. So yeah, go hit up that website, Act Blue. Go make a donation. It's in the comments right now. Just click. But yeah, so next we've got our interview for the night. Bill Londrigan is joining us. He is the longtime leader of the Kentucky AFL-CIO and American Federation of Labor, Congress of Industrial Organizations. Is that right? Is that what the AFL-CIO actually means, Bill?
It does actually mean that, and I'm actually surprised that you know it. So appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for joining us. We know that labor is an important player in the kind of, political landscape here in Kentucky. It has been for an awfully long time. And we're glad you're going to share, I think, very well timed, because I know you guys have been very active on the HEROES Act fight. But really quick, before we get into the meat of the interview, what does your sign say today, Bill?
Mine says, hey, multi-millionaire Moscow Mitch, pass a HEROES Act, not your Zeros Act.
Nice. A little internal rhyme. It's always good for a protest sign. A little rhyming. Never hurt anyone. All right. So fewer and fewer workers, I think, have been represented by a union in the workforce today, right? I mean, it's just an unfortunate reality. Is fewer people have had that kind of firsthand experience. What would you like everyone to know about the value of unions such as the AFL-CIO?
Oh, a number of things. And let me just say this as well. The statistical analysis that says the unions are losing all these members and stuff is really, not correct. And I'll tell you why. Because it's based on the total number of people in the workforce. So as the workforce increases large amounts over every year, in order for us to keep a percentage of the workforce organized, we would have to organize millions of workers. And obviously that's a pretty difficult task under the environment that we've been in for the last 40 years, where labor and workers have been under continual attack by big business interests and their puppets like Mitch McConnell. That's kind of a statistic that really misleads, because, we've had 13 to 14 million people in the workforce that are organized and union members for many, many years. And it varies by different trades, occupations, professions, and whether you're in a public or your private sector. So, that thing is something that I think the corporate media and their political puppets continue to espouse, that, oh, the labor movement's in this, great decline, Well, just today, I believe 45,000 people joined a union in California for healthcare workers and such. So, the notion that people are turning away is really incorrect, and especially under the conditions we're in now, which are very much attuned to workers being screwed over during this pandemic, and having workers more and more turning to unions as their only line of defense against corporations that are putting them at risk for death on the job. So that's one of the things that is so important about unions. You have a voice on the job and a way to protect your health and safety. Whereas if you're an unorganized worker and what we call an at-will worker, which about 90% of the public is that are not in unions, you have no right to your job and can be fired for no reason or any reason at all on any given day without a union contract. So the basic fundamental right and the basic fundamental difference about being in a union is that you have a contract that protects you, protects your rights on the job, or protects your rights to a job, where you have a grievance procedure. And, you look around right now, and I'm looking at you folks that are all relatively young in the media and doing things like this. And workers in the media and journalists are organizing left and right at Vox, at Slate, all over the place, recognizing that they have no alternative in order to protect their interests on the job, as well as improve their living standards. So, I mean, that's generally speaking what we're all about. I mean, you can go on and on about, what unions do in the community to raise wages and benefits and pensions and health care. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And of course, the general population in public and the general media have, totally discounted, and schools have engaged in revisionist history and left the labor movement out. And the only way you find out about it is through maybe programs like this, or whether your family member was in a union or somebody other than that, we're left out, and done purposely, because unlike this media right now, all the other media is owned by huge corporations that hate unions. So anyway, that's a little bit of a thumbnail sketch and a little background, but I'll also mention as well that the purpose and value of the labor movement can't be more evident right now on efforts like the HEROES Act. The labor movement has been leading the charge for the HEROES Act. The HEROES Act incorporates many of the elements of what we call the 5 essential elements for having a good economy under the pandemic, and that was put into the HEROES Act, including protections for health and safety on the job, healthcare extensions under COBRA, and on, money for state and local governments that are being starved of revenue, money for the infrastructure, for the U.S. Postal Service. I mean, it is one of the most far-reaching and important and necessary efforts and pieces of legislation that we have ever seen. And what we got is this, mealy-mouthed effort by multimillionaire Moscow Mitch McConnell and his colleagues to do nothing and sit there for weeks and months on end while people are going to lose their houses. It is absolutely unconscionable. And how a working person in the Commonwealth of Kentucky could vote for Mitch McConnell is just totally mind-boggling to me, that this guy has become a multi-millionaire while working for the government for forever. He's been in Senate since 1984. Well, their salary, what's their salary? Get the through the research. It's it must be like 180,000 or something like that. I mean, but how he's accumulated 40 and 50 million dollars. You think he gives a darn about whether or not you put food on the table or whether you got a job? You got to be kidding. So anyway, we have the HEROES Act before us, and the proposal that they just put out, the $200 to increase on the federal unemployment benefit, is a joke. It's an absolute shame, and there's no way that the Democrats should ever agree to that. The only thing that's been keeping our economy from going into a full-blown depression has been that $600 that people are spending every week to put food on the table. And we got Mnuchin sitting up there telling us that, oh, well, this is going to encourage people to stay home and not work and all this other stuff. Well, it's okay for him and his CEO buddies to stay home and not work, but when it comes to working people, well, gosh, we can't give them any benefits whatsoever, and when you look at the numbers, they keep throwing out this, oh, these folks are, making more than they would if they were working, nonsense, without making any statistical analysis of who that may even apply to. Most people on unemployment are making a lot less than they were, even with the $600. So this is a problem that, a perception that they put out here to try to undermine working people's right to have a good standard of living. And the irony of it to me is it's unbelievable because, our economy is based on consumer spending almost, exclusively. And that consumer spending is spent at the companies that have gotten all these big tax breaks, and if the people don't have the money to spend, then those companies are going to get hurt. So why would they be against having people with money in their pockets to try and keep food on the table and pay for their necessities and not get evicted from their houses or their apartments and made homeless? I don't even recognize, in many respects, the country that we're living in, my friends, from what has been going on, not just here recently, but over the last several decades, where the cards have been reshuffled to pay it as if, workers are somehow the enemies of the country, but we're the ones that make it happen and make it work. And without unions, you don't even have democracy. So what we got here is a real, failure to communicate, I would say, to coin a phrase. And, we need to pass this HEROES Act. People are being put in harm's way without any protections whatsoever on their jobs and work sites, and they're dying from it. But we got no effort on behalf of McConnell and his colleagues to address that. They're too busy putting unqualified right-wing judges on these federal benches for life, instead of taking care of the livelihoods of the people that make this country work, the citizens of the United States and Kentucky.
So it probably goes without saying that all of us here at the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee are pretty pro-union, and we're pretty much on your side. Now, what should Kentuckians know about Mitch and his relationship to unions?
Well, I'd say he probably doesn't have one very much. The only time he has to do anything for working people, whether they be union members or not, is when he's absolutely forced to, and it's politically expedient for him to do it. And he always does it with the same MO. Wait till the last minute, negotiate over the thing and break it down to its, least common denominator, and then pass something and then claim that, he saved them. He's, I'm a great savior of the workers. I haven't seen the ads yet, but I've gotten phone calls of people mentioning that his ads are, saying that he's been a great friend of working people. And, it really, just strains the imagination to figure out how that's the case, when everything he's always done has been to benefit large corporations and his rich buddies. Let's go back to the tax breaks that they came out. Remember the big corporate tax, the whole tax break that blew up the deficit again to the trillions of dollars. That tax break that they were going to hire all these people, and then they didn't hire them, and they bought back their stock, and they gave CEOs increases in millions of dollars worth of stock options. I mean, it's so ludicrous, and it's so obvious that he's been doing this for so long and getting away with it, and coming into Kentucky when it's convenient for him, and talking, like he's some big buddy of all these, working class people. He's been a bigger, brainwasher and an effective, sleight of hand magician on these issues as anybody. And, it's really time to stop. I really like what you guys are doing with your Mitch McConnell retirement committee. Me and the labor movement here have been trying to retire him for decades now. Okay. And we are going to continue to do it till we get rid of him. And this is the time that's coming. If he fails to produce on this HEROES Act and bring back the $600 at least until January, what are we talking about here? A couple months worth of benefits so that people can feed their children.
So you kind of just answered this question, but has Mitch ever shown any kindness to unions in his 35 years as a senator?
I didn't quite hear what you said, Annabel. I'm sorry. What was that?
So you kind of just answered this, but has Mitch ever shown any kindness to unions during his 35 years?
Well, not particularly. I mean, I'm sure at some points in time he has done favors and tried to pass stuff that may have helped unions as well as other workers. But, we have a rating system for the AFL-CIO for those that vote on these, the voting record, shall we say, for the AFL-CIO. I really haven't looked his up lately, okay? But it's probably less than 10% or 5%, okay? So that'll give you an indication about how many times he votes with working people, not just unions, we'll say on issues like trade, issues like safety and health, issues like healthcare. It's a minuscule amount of time, okay? So the amount of times that he has voted in favor of people that work for a living that would benefit them. And then on the other side of the ledge, you can look at the Chamber of Commerce's voting record for Mitch McConnell. I'm quite sure it's really high up there, And who's ever doing your research, they can look it up right now if they wanted to, And let me just mention something here. I just pulled this up today, speaking of doing a little research, right? And we talk about unemployment insurance benefits, and most people really don't understand a whole lot about them until, they get stuck and lose a job and get laid off and need to collect, But that, I went on the internet, of course, and looked at the the maximum weekly benefits that people collect in these states and across the country in all the states. The maximum weekly benefit for workers that are laid off and collecting unemployment insurance in the state of Tennessee is $275. It's right here, $275. 378 over in Virginia. So if you don't have the 600 on that and you're living in Tennessee and you have to put food on the table and support your family and your children and pay your car payment, your mortgage, and you got $275 a week, that is a sin. Okay. And that is, it varies from state to state. And of course, why it varies from state to state, because it depends on who's controlling the political system in those states. If they're Republican controlled and, got friends with Mitch McConnell and such, you got these minuscule benefits or maximums that are unlivable, as we say, a livable wage. Well, sure, that isn't one. So if I'm in Tennessee, for instance, and I use that as an example, in Kentucky, we've got a much higher rate of unemployment. In fact, we used to have much higher rates of everything for working people until certain things changed in this state. Our maximum weekly benefit is $552. Now, that's 66 2/3 of the average weekly wage. Now, most people aren't getting that level of benefit, even, if they're collecting unemployment. They're not getting the maximum benefit. Only the highest wage earners are getting that benefit. But everybody's taking a pay cut when they collect unemployment. They want to act like it's some sort of gimme, and that people are, going to say, oh, I'm not going to go to work. I need that $275 a week. I'd rather make that. It's unbelievable. It's unconscionable. And, without the $600, I mean, this was I would say a godsend, under the CARES Act. And not only, it kept our economy, as I said, from going into an actual depression, it put money in people's pockets. And let me see, Dustin over at Center for Economic Policy, I think $1.7 billion came into the Commonwealth from that benefit. And it generated $3 billion worth of economic activity. You would think these folks in Washington, like Mitch McConnell, would say that was a good thing, that people could go buy stuff in the stores and in the businesses that give him all his campaign contributions. You would think he'd want to do that, but they want to, flip the script and make people look like they're trying to, get something for nothing. Krugman just came out with his article here today. There's 30 million Americans on unemployment insurance, and there's 5 million jobs. So, of course, there's job mismatches and different qualifications. So not everybody can just automatically go into one of those 5 million jobs if they're at where they're at and what kind of occupations they're in. But there are 30 million plus people unemployed in that small amount of jobs. And
It's astounding to me, Bill. Thank you so much. That's some really helpful information, and it's astounding to me because obviously the only thing that all these political creatures are thinking about is re-election, right? So you've got Donald Trump, who's his main agenda has been to ignore the pandemic, pretend it's not there, so that he can try to get the economy moving again. You just nailed it. The only reason this economy is still moving is because there are these kind of turbocharged unemployment benefits to keep people whole when they can't work. We had Dr. Birx came to Kentucky this weekend to tell us, yeah, you need to shut down the bars. Well, geez, what happens when you shut down the bars? These folks who've been kind of trying to come back to work aren't going to be able to come back to work. So what happens to them? Well, conveniently enough, this is when they have either the benefit has run out and they're not going to get their act together to renew it, or they're going to do this piecemeal $200 a week thing, which is not going to let you even pay your rent. I don't know where these people live. Well, Birx, I'm sure, is her house, I'm sure, is paid for. And Mitch and all his contributors, they're all paid for. They don't need to worry about it. But it is going to hurt people. And who are they going to blame? Well, they better blame the folks in charge in Washington, D.C. right now, because this is coming out of Trump. This is coming out of Mnuchin. This is coming out of Mitch McConnell, right? So if he wants to get reelected in 99 days, we got 99 days to go, folks. Remember who's in charge when things are going rough here in Kentucky because of the horrible leadership we've seen at the federal level. So that's my soapbox. But Bill, any other actions you want to point to in terms of what Kentucky AFL-CIO is doing to help defeat Mitch in November? Because I know you guys have never endorsed him, as far as I know. I heard this weekend, I think you endorsed Amy, made it official. And what else are you doing to help get rid of Mitch?
As much as possible. You already put up the 866 number, which if you could share again, we're just having people call, and it's a patch through number. So there's a little intro there that informs people of specifically what is going on with the HEROES Act and what they should be asking for. And we have some stuff planned for Thursday at several offices around the Commonwealth that we think we should get some unemployed people to go visit Mitch's offices and talk to their staff and express their needs and desires and their concerns, their all of the angst that they have built up from not knowing what's going to go on and the difficulty they have in this economy and under this pandemic. We're going to try to get people to listen. So we'll be putting some material out on that very shortly. That's another thing that we're going to try and do. Again, just continuing to try and communicate with people. We've had several of these town hall type Facebook Live events, and we've been trying to get the word out. Last week we did one with the Kentucky Equal Justice Center and Kentucky Economic Policy Institute and several other groups, and we had some unemployed women that were on that program, and they told what it is they're facing. And so we're going to try and continue getting this message out. And I think it's important for people to realize in Kentucky, if Mitch McConnell bails out on us right now when the help is most needed, what do we need him for?
Absolutely. This is, what's the point of having the most powerful senator in Washington, D.C. if he never delivers for your Commonwealth? Why is it we still have, Doug can't be live with us because the internet's so bad out in Cynthiana? Why is it there, bridges falling apart in Kentucky that people are scared to drive over? Yet he's married to the Secretary of Transportation and he's got some secret line to bring us all the goods. Well, he's not doing a very good job, right? So, put the politics aside. But if you think that, the number one job of a senator in DC is to bring resources back to the Commonwealth, he's failing on that very simple, estimate. And let alone the actual policies he's pushing, which, are hurting us again and again and again. And I think this HEROES Act work that you guys are doing is so important, Bill. And let us know about Thursday. We'd love to spread the word. I think it's really important people show up at his often vacant offices because, there's so few kind of actual good faith efforts to connect to constituents and provide services for constituents. Because, the millionaires and the billionaires and the big corporate fat cats, they don't need to stop by the office. They've got his, his cell phone, I'm sure. But, the providing the services thing, he's always been horrible about. And as we mentioned earlier, he never picks up his phone. His staff never pick up the phone. It's almost like they don't want to hear from us.
I would imagine that that's a problem, because he's supposed to be working for us. And that's where we have a real disconnect, and that's why people need to just get over it and get rid of him. I mean, I don't see what the whole, interest is, or his allure to them. As you mentioned, the leader of the Senate. Well, how is he using that leadership, to put these right-wing, radical, unqualified judges on a federal bench? That's all he's been doing.
Yeah.
And we've got this huge pandemic going on. Oh, now all of a sudden he's going to wear a face mask, and that's all good too. And, he's been buddying up and, everything that Trump wants to do. And of course, who's the one that blocked the impeachment of this president that we have that is, turning our country into a war zone, with all his silly rhetoric and racist comments. And, today it just almost made me gag when he said that he would not go and pay respects to Congressman John Lewis as he laid in state in the Capitol. That just shows you where he's at, and Mitch McConnell's right along with him.
Yeah, so offensive. The idea that the conscience of the Congress is not going to be recognized by that lazy, good for nothing, president. It is truly, it's an embarrassment that he wouldn't recognize. I mean, even Mitch knew enough to say nice things about, Congressman Lewis. He wouldn't do the actual thing, which is advance the Voter Protection Act, right? Well, that's the number one thing he should do if he wants to honor John Lewis's sacrifices and his life's work, is to make sure that it's safe for people to vote. And it's of course he won't ever do that. But yeah, it's a troubling time. We've got our work cut out for us. 99 days, Bill. I know that you are going to be there in the trenches for all 99 of them, working really hard to make sure that that labor's perspective is shared in this election. And I've been really impressed with the work that I've seen the AFL-CIO do in the past few sessions that I've been a part of, or the campaign races that I've been a part of, and we're glad to see that union effort. So thank you so much for all of that, Bill. We appreciate it very much.
It takes a team of people, and it also takes our members and their families, who are more likely to understand these issues, I guess, than the average voter. And they turn out and they know pretty much what's going on, and we can at least make the effort to inform them further and to make sure that they understand who is going to support them when they get to the Congress or to the State House, and and that's really what it's all about. And, I just want to applaud your effort to try and, continue helping getting this message across to people, average people in Kentucky that need to get this message about Mitch McConnell, how much money he's going to spend on TV. One of the things we're really missing here is owning a TV station or something, because there are millions and millions of dollars that are going to pour in, with him putting misleading ads on, which, is, like I mentioned before, his MO and in the legislative process, and his MO in the political process is to spend so much money on another person that they and frame them in a negative light in the context and make him look like he's something special, and he's got unlimited money. People say, oh well, Amy's raised X dollars, which is equivalent to what Mitch had raised in his campaign account. But you guys that are doing this research, he's got the Bluegrass Committee, the committee to, keep the Senate in Mitch McConnell's control, and, all these different piles of money, that he has people put in by the millions of dollars. We have people that campaign and we get them $100 or $50 or $10, and he gets Sheldon Adelson or somebody like that to write him a check. Well, give you $5 million, and that's the way this whole, and that's why he helped them pass Citizens United, so he can control this political process. That should be something that is also on the minds of every American. We've got a big problem. Those with the money are the ones who are controlling this system, and that's a fundamental flaw. Because the average person's voice is obviously drowned out, and it all gets back to this huge money in politics. I once heard Jimmy Carter say, as Jimmy Carter went around the world to protect democratic elections and the processes and election processes to make sure that they were done properly. And somebody asked him, would you ever do that here in this country? And he said, absolutely not. He says, with the money that's in our political system, there's no way to really have a fair election, and it really was a commentary on, that was a paraphrase, of course. Can't recall exactly the quote, but I can tell you that, he did say he wouldn't do it in the United States of America because we don't have equal access to the media, and he says one of the preconditions for a democratically run election in another country that he monitors is that all the candidates have a fair and equal access to the media, which is obviously what's bought and paid for by the billions of dollars in this country. And of course, thanks to Citizens United, those monies continue to skyrocket. And when you've got millionaires writing millions of dollars worth of checks, it becomes, hard to compete and really just a race to the bottom with the messaging and what the approaches really are to the political system. So, again, we've got some real fundamental problems, not just the pandemic, but how these elections function. I'm trying to be optimistic all the time about our elections. And the last one, the primary, when we had our first experience with mail-in absentee voting here in Kentucky, left me with a positive attitude, but on that score, because it increased the turnout, made voting a lot more efficient and easier for the average person. But it also creates a whole lot of worry going into November, hearing some of the things that I've been hearing about, Trump and those guys trying to stop and quell the mail-in voting system, even to go to the extreme of putting in a postmaster general that's trying to slow up the mail. So anyway, that's Mitch's great buddy. And, we're not going to let him forget that the House impeached this president for what he did. And Mitch McConnell got him off the hook.
Yep. It was not a fair trial. We didn't have any witnesses. It was outrageous. It was a kangaroo court in the worst case scenario. Bill, thank you so much for sharing your time, your energy, your perspective with us, that historical look at, Mitch's failed record in terms of workers. And we're excited to be working with you to get rid of him in 99 days. So any final thoughts you want to share us with before we go?
One of the final thoughts is you guys are doing a worthwhile effort here, and on behalf of Kentucky AFL-CIO, we'll try to make a contribution that will match the indivisible, amount, so you can, have it matched.
All right, that's great. So you heard it, folks. We've got to match that if we want to get to the 350. It's actually a double match because of the AFL-CIO support, which is fantastic. And I've been looking at the website, and so far we have a $25 contribution, which is that's great. Thank you for the $25. Now we just need to get, another 10 people to do it. And we're getting closer. So do what you can, do it right now, match the AFL, match, Indivisible, so we can have the resources to really build a big microphone and make sure we hold Mitch accountable in 99 days. But in 7 days, next week, we're going to have Nina and Mickey McCoy from Martin County joining us. They're Kentuckians for the Commonwealth members from Martin County. They're going to be talking about the coal industry and whether Mitch is a friend of coal communities. whether he's a friend of coal workers or if he's really just a friend of the folks who own the coal companies. And they're going to tell a lot of stories about what's happening with their water in Martin County and with the politics that's going on out there, which is not really going in the favor of the actual people and getting them safe and clean water. So again, great episode. Thanks so much to Bill Londrigan and his support, the AFL-CIO support. We are right now, we're not quite at 2,000 likes on Facebook. So please help us out. This week we had some breaking news in the Facebook world. The libertarians found us, and they're very, very fired up and very passionate about some candidate that I've never heard of. But they really think that the best way to get rid of Mitch is to vote for some candidate you've never heard of. So get on the Facebook page. Let's try to drown out those misguided voices and make sure that we know the real choice here is between Mitch and Amy. And if you don't like Mitch, you got to support Amy. And there's lots of good reasons to do as well. And we'll talk about those in future episodes. But thanks again to everybody. Thanks to Ken and Couchfire Media for making our live stream look so much better. Let's keep that going. Give us the bells, the whistles, the audio effects, all the great things that Ken can do for us. And we'd like to have the resources to make it as exciting and fantastic moving on forward. And if you haven't listened yet, I want you to listen to Mitch, Please. So NATO's amazing song that does such an informative and humorous effort to let you know what Mitch is up to. As I've said before, if you like the Beatles and hate Mitch, this is your song. It is catchy. It's hummable. It's hard to get out of your head. But hey, we've got 99 days to get it out of our head, so let's lean into it for a while. But yeah, thanks everyone for supporting the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. We really appreciate you spending some time with us tonight. So go out there, take action, make that phone call to Mitch's office, and then if he doesn't pick up, go to his Facebook page, go to his Twitter feed, let people know you're disappointed. I actually read a letter to the editor this Sunday in the Lexington paper. Somebody wrote a letter to the editor about how Mitch's office is never picks up the phone. So I love that approach. Look, you won't listen to me. I'm gonna take it to the mountaintop and scream about how horrible you are and how your constituent services suck. So that's his message for us. He doesn't care about us. So anyway, thanks everybody. Any final words from Nate or Annabel?
Go to the Indivisible Act Blue site and help us make those matching funds, please.
It's a triple match, double match, triple match. It's a lot of money. Come on, your $25 turns into a lot. Let's do it, people. Annabelle, how about you?
Everyone, make sure you and your friends are registered to vote, because that's the only way we'll get Mitch out of office. So even if you think someone's registered, check in and make sure.
Fantastic. And we have a great website here in Kentucky. The online voter registration website truly is a very functional, very fantastic portal. You can make sure that you're registered at the current address, do all that stuff very easily online. But yeah, that's the show. That's your Moscow Mitch Monday. Thanks for joining us.